I'm talking about David Coe, the CEO of Calm, the leading app for meditation and mindfulness.
David has now written a book about self-care called Recharge, boosting your mental battery one conversation at a time.
I'm David Coe, CEO of Calm, son of Korean immigrants, a proud father, and author of the #1 best-selling book, Recharge. Recharge is where leaders and changemakers share the tools, habits, and mindsets they rely on to stay grounded, energized, and effective. Let's recognize, reflect, and recharge together. Our conversation today is with one of the most respected hip-hop artists of all time. He's a Grammy, Emmy, and Oscar winner. He's a New York Times bestseller, and his second book, And Then We Rise, is a must-read. After reading his book, I felt inspired, and I hope this conversation does the same for you. Let's recharge with Common. All right, Common, thank you so much for being here today.
Peace, David. Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited about getting to chat with you, talk with you, build with you. It's great to be here.
I love that. I love that. You know, I think like so many of us, I thought I knew your story. We've obviously followed you for quite some time, but preparing even more for this conversation, I realized that there's just so much more. And, you know, it was really around your purpose, your growth, your activism, which is truly, truly inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that and grateful to dig into that.
Yeah. And, you know, we've actually worked and teamed up together before. Uh,
Yes.
you were part of our Calm Conversations with Dr. Rita Walker, and that's available in the app and also on YouTube. So thank you.
No, that was a great conversation. I learned a lot. I love when I get to be a part of something where I feel like, okay, I'm there to give, but I also received, and I learned a lot, and it was great to be on that with you all. And what you all do with Calm is amazing. I just want to say, man, it's about what I'm about, and spreading that love and light and gratitude and encouraging people from all walks of life just to be better within themselves and to find peace. So I'm that's why I'm like excited to talk to you, and I was grateful to get to do that talk, because Calm has been something. When it first came out, I was like, oh, this is necessary. This is amazing. We need this. I need it.
And we're gonna team up again,
Yes.
and on a future sleep story. So how do you feel about now, putting people now to sleep, millions of people to sleep?
Well, well, let me tell you something. I relate to it. I relate it, and this is coming from a sincere place, um, that I understand when it's tough to go to sleep and sometimes needing the right assistance. And I'm a believer in that assistance being something of the calm nature, where it's like someone speaking to you, a sound, something that's really natural and kind of good for your spirit to help get you to sleep. I've been actually using some of you all's, some of the things on the app, because I'm presently in London filming something, and it's like some days, man, when I fly back from, because I go back to the States and I fly back, it's hard to get to sleep. So I'm bringing that up because I really truly relate to it. For a while, it wasn't hard for me because I was always tired and I'd be running around. But as of late, going from different time zones and I was like, man, I need something to help me. So Calm has been one of those things that has helped, and I'm grateful to be contributing in that way. And I hope I'll be able to help people go to sleep in peace.
Yeah, you're gonna help millions of people. I can't wait. I'm
Yeah.
excited. This episode and us talking today really honors Mental Health Awareness Month. And we know these conversations aren't always so easy, but we know how critical they are for so many people that are out there. I'm grateful today to share this space with you. So thank you again. And just again, really looking forward to the discussion.
Yes.
Um, you know, I um I wanna talk a little bit about something that I know you've talked about before, but you're the first rapper to and I'm gonna say this twice, to win an Emmy, a Grammy, and an Oscar. Um, do you ever have these moments, Common, where you just pinch yourself and you go, "I've won an Emmy, a Grammy, and an Oscar."
Well, I mean, I have to say that I am supremely grateful to that, that I have reached that point because that was something that as a kid growing up on the south side of Chicago, I just dreamed of being seen, being heard, being acknowledged. And for me to find something that's purposeful and that I love, and it eventually becomes something that I'm able to do as a profession, several things from music to acting, and utilize those things to uplift other individuals and to bring love to people and like inspire. That's the most important thing. The awards feel great, and don't get me wrong, David, I appreciate them awards, and you will see me on that stage being like happy. But I also look at it as a chance to shed more light and spread more light. Like the time when John Legend and I won an Oscar, uh, I really realized that, man, we weren't up there for us. As much as I was super happy to get that award, in our speeches, we didn't say anything about thank my mom, we were talking about things that were going on in the world and how we felt like we could bring some love and some strength and some courage to other people. And I think, these awards to me just allow me to get to more people become aware. And I'm a competitor in a way. Like I do, like, not even in a way. I'm a competitor. I grew up loving sports too, and just being so I do want to reach the highest levels in any art form that I do and things that I'm passionate about. So I'm very grateful for those. And I do at times be like, when people mention it, like, wow, that's really happened. But to be honest, in this point in life, I'm like, like, okay, what am I going to do next that will spread that energy, be at the high level creatively, um, be timeless and reach people for generations. And then all the awards come from that.
I love that. I love that. And I think it's what you're saying. It's really also about all the impact that you're making out there.
Sure.
And just on a side note, and I know again it's not all about the awards, but I hope you get that Tony as well on a personal note.
Let's go, David. I did Broadway, just so I did Broadway. I did a play in 2022 going into 23. But I plan to do more Broadway. And let me be clear, David, because I want to say, when I say all the awards will come, it's not like just because I do stuff with the love that awards come, but when they do come, I'm grateful for them. But my intention is about exactly what you said, impacting people's lives, inspiring people, and bringing joy and love to individuals.
Ah, love that. I love that. Well, where does all this drive come from? You talked about you growing up on the south side of Chicago here. And was that drive always there as a young child?
You know, I, I believe I had a drive as a child, and that drive I believe comes from my belief in God, my spirituality. It comes from my spirituality and my love for people too. But I think it was really like I wanted to be something in the world. And when I say my love for God, it's like I felt like my life, I have to be purposeful in it because I've been blessed to live and another thing was growing up on the South Side, I grew up around people who were really dealing with really real difficult struggles. I'm talking from people who lost their parents, who had parents that were addicted to drugs. But I also dealt with, people who were aff affluential and like, had risen up in this black area and were like doing well for themselves. So I kind of got to connect with all types of people, and me seeing the struggle that some went through, I always felt like I wanted to do something. I wanted to help them, but and I believed in helping myself was a way that I could help others. And I looked at Muhammad Ali as one of my,
Ah,
heroes. Like he was David.
inspirational.
And that David, that dude was like to this day, I got a picture up that that I got a gift that says something, one of his quotes, that I just love, man. And he's having figures like that. And one last story I'll tell you that really was a driving thing for me. And it's a heavy story, but I'm gonna tell you. When I was in elementary school, I read a story about this young man named Emmett Till. He was from Chicago, and in the 50s, he went to visit his family in Mississippi, and he ended up like he was accused of whistling at a white woman at the time, and
Mm.
he was 14 years old, and the woman who accused him of whistling at her, her husband and his friends came and snatched Emmett Till out of his aunt's house, who he was visiting for the summer, and ended up murdering him and beat him very bad. And I remember reading this and seeing a picture of Emmett Till. His mother had them have an open casket funeral, and this was the beginning of the civil rights for many people. That changed people's like perspectives and really recognizing they had to stand up for humanity during this time, because when they saw that young 14-year-old boy be murdered for that and they saw what he looked like. Anyway, I bring that story up because I used to, when I read that story, I always felt like I owe it to people who have lost their lives, my ancestors and elders who've done so much. That's part of my drive too. Is like what they have given and what people have been through for me to be able to even do what I can do. So I felt like I owed it to Emmett Till and some of the other ancestors and people who fought for our freedom.
Oh, I love that. I often say when people talk about success that one has achieved, you never really get there on your own. You get there with a lot of people behind you that have helped you along the way, have been so gracious, breaks that you all have had. It seems like there's been so many people that have inspired you along in your journey as well.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many people. And I mean, I mentioned the Muhammad Ali's
Yeah.
and but it's also a teacher like Mr. Brown, who was my math teacher, but also taught me like about just being a young man with integrity, being a person who was disciplined and diligent towards their things. My mother, man, my mother is part of probably one of the reasons I have drive too, is because one thing she did was I had to achieve and do well in school, and know I had to show that I was doing my best. Even if I didn't excel in a certain, I had to show that I was doing my
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
But when I did that, David, when I did that, it was like I could I would get things, like I would have privileges. I would have like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so and when I didn't, I would get in trouble and like or not have those privileges. Those privileges would be taken away. So I think that set a tone for me to understand like, hey, certain things to get to places in life, you have to put in the work. I always wanted to earn. I never I never wanted to win the lottery, brother. I wanted to earn I wanted to earn the things that I have and get and the things I envision, because I some point understood that the journey means so much to that earning, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking of mothers, I'll just ask you this one question here because my own mother has given me lots of good advice in life, and sometimes not so good advice. It kind of cuts both ways. But I was just wondering from your perspective, what's some of the best advice you got, and what's some of the advice where you're like, Mom, hey, that didn't quite fit. Kind of with where you are today.
I think, well, some of the best advice my mother gave me was in a situation where I was doing a speaking engagement with Dr. Maya Angelou in at this church in Harlem called the Riverside Church, historic church. Bishop Desmond Tutu has spoken there, Harry Belafonte, like Dr. King. It was a historic church in Harlem. And I was doing it with Dr. Maya Angelou. Um, I went up and did my speech, and I tried to go off the cuff. I tried to, improv. I didn't prepare.
Yes.
Doctor, I got some claps and but inside I felt like, man, I felt like I had wasted people's time and space. And Dr. Angelo came on and just lit it up, man, just spoke, and we all were moved. And we got into the van after we got into the truck after that, the truck, and we were riding back. And my mother, a lot of people were saying, good job, Rashid. Good job, you did good. And my mother said, no, you didn't. No, no, you didn't. That was not you could you she said, "You can be good at this, but you have to work. You have to
Yeah.
prepare. You have to, like, work at this like you work at your music, work at you could be a good speaker." And I was a little defensive at the time, but I knew deep down inside what she was saying was correct, and I felt like I owe it to people when I speak to take time to prepare because they're giving their time and people if they show up, they want something. They want some inspiration. They want something that they can leave with. And I wanted to give them something practical. So that was some of her best advice. Some of her not so good advice was when I told her I was doing therapy, she said, um, "We don't do that." And I said, "Yo, yes, we do. Yeah, yeah, we do." It was a real David, it was a real awakening for her, for me, because I had been going to therapy and practicing it. And I was telling her about it because they was talking about it in the book, and I was telling her some of the situations that happened. And what I understood at that time was this was a generational thing overall and somewhat dealing with cultural generations of black people who didn't embrace therapy and mental health um, in that way. And I don't point the finger or blame us because I think when I traced it back to just, like what it comes from, I think for survival, even from slavery days, it was no, from days of being enslaved, it was no like time for people to be like, okay, well, man, we need to heal in this way. They I don't think we knew how to come to even not that we didn't know how to communicate, but the communication wasn't there of like it was
Yeah.
like you gotta toughen up to make it through. And I think that got passed on generations like, yo, we gotta make it. So we don't have a time to cry about this or and I don't think it was like really brought to our communities in that way. And I don't know as a whole we didn't seek it out but that's why it's up to us to change things and stop certain cycles and bring new things. I always believe that, man, I learned so much from my elders, wisdom and just life about life. But it's also some things that I have to leave and let go because it worked for their time, or it might not have worked for their time. But it's ways of that we can improve, and that's what evolution and growth and learning is there for. And I'm always willing to learn and seek.
Ah, I love that. I that's such a good transition for us in this conversation as we talk about mental health during Mental Health Awareness Month, and especially how that affects people of color. But before we do, I want to tell you one thing with my mom because you gave me the mom story.
Yeah.
I could always tell when my mom was disappointed because she wouldn't like she can't hide her facial expressions. And so it'd just be like one of these, that's not really good. I'd be like doing something and I could just see it. There's no poker face with my mom. She would just kind of let and I appreciated that. It was in the moment, and it's like, okay, well, if my dad did that, I didn't like it too much. But if my
Right.
mom did it, I understood it.
Yeah. Yo, well, what was would you say that was some of the most like positive, even though it was like tough at times, but was that some of the most positive inspiration your mother had given you or
I think with my parents, I always knew that they had my back and it was always with good intentions. And I appreciated that, and they were trying to make me better. And even though sometimes it was a little bit of that tough love, ultimately I find myself a better person. I see myself doing things that they did when they were younger as parents. And so now as a parent myself, I'm like, I catch myself every once in a while going, oh my God, that's from what my parents used to say to
yeah.
me. So kind of funny how it comes full circle.
Yeah. I mean, it's necessary, some of those things that what your parents said.
That's right.
And then I believe that it's also necessary that you and we've grown up in a generation where we have also other tools and resources to that, my mother now is like open. She went from like looking at therapy as like we don't do that to like understanding that. And I mean, I even hear pastors talking about therapy now, which is beautiful. Like, because you know, people would say, man, I don't need therapy. I got God. Well, God works through therapists. God works through people. God works through books and nature and like and music and art and and conversation. So I think it's about understanding that and really coming into uh um a acceptance that this is something that could benefit us and heal us and improve us as we move forward as human beings and as communities, as a culture. So my mother got wind of it and she's open to it now.
Ah, love that. Love that. So I recently spoke to Kevin Bacon, and we had this conversation that about the pressures of what men face around emotions and expressing emotions. Um, and I wanted to ask you, for men of color, is that pressure even deeper? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I do believe as a man of color, as a black man, like a lot of what we received in the ways that we had to carry ourselves was not as open to like just being vulnerable and talking about your feelings in certain ways or expressing yourself in different ways. Even just being different was not like really it wasn't cultivated and
Mm,
nurtured.
mm.
And you know like I said, I think some of it just came from generations of making it we got to survive to fighting for other things and not being able to show that, to also just not being taught those things. Who, like, if I think about, man, who sat down with me and said, man, you got to be able to be like open as a human being and like open your heart and like express who you are. Like, and it's okay to feel sad about this and to cry about this, or it's
Yes.
okay to feel like you can, man, like you were heartbroken over this situation. And yes, acknowledge it and learn how to figure out how to deal with it and work through it. We didn't have those type of conversations. And man, it's like, man, it's okay to find equality in a partner, and you don't have
Yes.
to like dominate and it was a lot of things in our culture that was like kind of like, man, we taking over and this and that's the way to be a man, is we doing it like this and that's it. And I think it took us time as people to be like, okay, man, I don't even feel whole like that. And I
Yeah.
find myself in certain cycles when I do that. So yeah, to answer your question, David, I think that as black culture, um, I felt even more of an obstacle and challenge of when I started practicing like mental health, like awareness for me and practices and going to therapy and figuring out meditation. I found it to be something that when I started to share with others, I wasn't embarrassed about it, but it was more like, man, it took time to break through for them to receive it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really appreciate and thank you for talking about how you have the conversations with your mother, and then you kind of she's embraced it. How have you found that conversation in the broader community? Have they embraced and started to embrace the conversations around therapy? Or are we still in the early innings of that conversation?
I think we are in the better innings of the
Nice.
conversation. I think we like are for I've noticed more and more in in Black and brown communities and communities of color, men, women talking about therapy that they have. And I think it took people who were seen as like popular and had it all together to say, man, I got issues and I got to work on these things. Like an artist like Kid Cudi, who talked about is, like, and seeing that come from a person like myself, they see me like calm and spread love and spread light, but then it's like, okay, I got issues and this is why I've been going to therapy. And when I share this with you, I'm telling you my true journey and things that have truly benefited me. You know, my spirituality is the foundation, but I look at therapy as a branch of that. And of that. I look at meditation as a branch of who I am spiritually. And I'll give you I'll tell you about, I was promoting my book in Chicago. We were going around the country promoting it. And we were having a conversation and I was talking about therapy and why I chose to go to therapy and how it had benefited me. And it was a young man who was part of, I have a foundation in Chicago called the Common Ground Foundation, which we mentor youth. We bring them mental health like practices, but also, academic, nutritional, like this is a powerful organization we have there. So anyway, he was a part of it. Unfortunately, this young man had witnessed his mom being killed by his stepfather. And his grandmother, he was a 16-year-old young man. His grandmother was wanting him to go to therapy, but he didn't want to go. He would not go. He had a lot of things. He was holding in a lot of things. I mean, we can't even imagine what that is. But I was having that talk. I talked about it from a perspective just that, like, relatable, because it's like, man, I didn't grow up knowing about therapy or thinking like, yeah, I should go. So I talked about it and talked about my journey with it. When he came up for me to sign his book and, say what's up to him because he was from our organization, one of the counselors said later that he decided to go to therapy after hearing that.
So good.
Yeah, man. So David, I was like, and I've had friends, like I've had friends call me that's the breakthrough. That's why we gotta have these conversations. That's why we gotta bring it to our community, like unashamedly, unapologetically, and not like throw it in their face like it's like we greater than you because we do this, but sharing it with love and sharing it as a way to say, hey man, if you ever need any type of other support, like I've been like some of my closest friends who I've known have gone through some really difficult things, have at times in their late 40s said, man, Rashid, what do you think about, man, I'm thinking about going to a therapist. Yes, let's do it, man, do it. I'll try to help you find the right ones in this community, which is something that I think, man, I want to concentrate more on too, David, is just like making sure like people could just access those therapists as easy as possible, because
That's right.
some of this health and wellness and helping people find their peace, it has to be like what you all created, calm. Like it just has to
Thank you.
be like easy access, man. That's what some of this has to be that.
Yeah, access is such a big issue. I
Yeah.
mean, even today with so many, I mean, that's one part of the equation. Another part's actually kind of using it and staying with, any type of solution that's out there. I would say, you continue to lead from the front, which is so inspiring. And another area where you led from the front, you talk about is you went to therapy with your daughter together.
Yes.
Um, can you talk a little bit about that and what you learned in that experience?
Well, one of the things I believe that I needs needed to acknowledge and it was hard for me to acknowledge was that I'm not the perfect father. I wanted to be and
Mm.
strive to be, but I'm not, and not the perfect parent. And in understanding that, I think when my daughter brought up certain things in our conversations that led me to understand that we needed to have therapy together. We needed to have because for me, why it was so helpful and so life-changing for us, relationship changing for our father-daughter dynamic was that, you know, I was able to get out of my own way and like get out of being defensive or my own perspective and just listen. Cause we had someone that didn't have any, like, they hadn't walked in either of our shoes, so they weren't biased in a certain way. They hadn't even been like hearing about experiences throughout the years, and they were professionals. So they understood what psychological things are just are cycles, what things are, and which ways and tools we can use to resolve, to just to get out into the open and heal. Like, so having that type of wisdom and comp- um compassion, and at the same token somebody is non-biased, like talking to us, it taught me to listen to my daughter more, and not like just always feel like if it's her perspective, I don't always have to agree, but I need to understand it, work to understand it, listen and care for, about it, and acknowledge that I understand it and I hear. And I think that was therapy helped us to do it together, and it just made me confront things that I probably not probably things that I hadn't, like accepted and dealt with. And it's like when your daughter says we should go to therapy together, you kind of like, damn, I don't, it's almost like I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to, you don't want to find out something bad about yourself. You don't want to see that scar that's there. Um, you're not ready for it, but it's not just about me, it's about us. And it just benefited us so much, that therapy, and our relationship just became pure and true instead of us holding things in. So it was one of the most beneficial things that happened in our relationship, and I'm so grateful we did. I'm grateful that she was able to express herself, and I got to say she led the way, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I think it's so great, and we sometimes, even with my oldest daughter, I find myself having her lead certain conversations. But it's what's helped us is not to always have the conversation at home where there's lots of distractions.
Yeah.
We'll sometimes go for a quick walk or just go to dinner together, where we can have our own time and not be distracted. And even that, while that conversation may be short, I think it's always kind of powerful to let her know I'm here for you and I'm listening.
Yeah.
Uh, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, what's one of the that's beautiful, bro. What you said, just those like a walk short, like those things will be meaningful for the rest of her life, and it's like obviously benefiting your life because how quality the time is. But what's one of the things that you feel like you've learned from your daughter? How old is your daughter?
Well, my oldest is 17 and my younger one's 14.
Oh, cool.
And I constantly feel I'm learning different lessons from them. But I will tell you, one of them is really trying to be a lot more present with them. And they called me out on that. They were like, "Dad, you always tell us don't be on your phone or don't do this or don't do that, but then when you're talking to us, you're like looking left, and you're listening, or you pick up the phone right away while we're in the middle of conversation." I'm like, "You're right." And so I've tried to be a lot more, kind of present with them when we spend time together.
Man, that's so significant, man. And it's ain't it really fresh, man, how your your children, your daughters can teach you and like bring to light some of the things the things that we need to shape up in ourselves and develop, and some of the things we need to work on. They will bring it to you and you feel it when they bring it.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you feel it. So it's even like I said, when I was defensive initially, I stepped back and was like, man, this is how my daughter feels. And whether some of the things she's saying like didn't resonate as true to me, this is her truth. And I'm gonna respect that and show her that I understand. And we're gonna discuss it. And just, one of the things she said to her about the therapy we had, and just even beyond the therapy, the conversations was like, man, Dad, just the fact that you heard me you hear me,
Ah,
means a lot.
yeah. Love that. Love
Yeah.
that. I want to shift to a conversation or to self-love and authenticity. And I just love how you write honestly about embracing self-love in your own journey. And, even around physical appearance where you talk about hair loss or other things.
Yeah.
What did that moment teach you around self-love?
Man, well, when I lost my hair, I was really young. So, and it was at a time where, I wanted to rock a hairstyle that was like of the times. It was like cornrows, everybody wearing their hair free, and I'm like, oh, I'm losing my hair. Um, I think what it taught me was like, man, God has given me everything that I need, and the things that may seem like they dwindling away or going away, it's I still have me. I still have my spirit. I have my beauty comes from within. And I used to wear hats all the time when I first went bald. And then when I started building up my self-love, I was like, oh, this is me. What it taught me was to be able to show myself to the world for all that I am. That means the things that people might laugh at, some things that people might squirm at, some people might judge. And it freed me up, David. It freed me up, man. It's like it feels like something that's kind of vain, but it's not. It was more like being able to say, man, this is who I am. This is what I lost my hair at this age. Okay. Like I feel beautiful regardless. I feel good and great regardless. But it took time for me to feel that. Initially I wasn't feeling that. And it just taught me that when you really practice and loving yourself, you know, you can have you can be shaped whatever way you ha
Right. Yeah.
you like, it's really not about that, and that's something that I notice in people that I find, like, are attractive, not just I'm not talking just on a way of, like, sexual attraction or, that type of attraction, but I'm just attractive people, like, some about people who love themselves that make them attractive. It's like when they walk into a room, you feel it, like, or
Yeah.
you see them taking a picture and there's something about it, or it's them in a performance and you like, wow, or just sitting in a conversation, or even if it's a waiter or waitress coming to the table and you just feel it, like, and there's something attractive about it and something that people wanted to be around. So I realized that, like, I didn't wasn't losing anything. I was just gaining a new aspect of me, and I
Well
just
said.
yeah.
Love that. Love that. I want to shift because where would I be with Common without asking a question around music? And when we think about music and your music, obviously you've been doing it since you were so young. And how do you feel music can people? How do you think music can help people feel less alone in life?
Well, music music is a divine thing, man, and divine, like, the one thing I wanna talk about when 'cause I know you've been hearing me talk about God, and I know corporations and sometimes people don't like they say, "Don't bring up God." But God, I believe God is divine, and that divinity is in all of us, no matter what color you are, what your religion. I believe that God exists in us, and God that created the heavens and earth is also in us, and we are reflections of that Most High God. And I think music is like an expression of the divine, and when it really like connects with you, it it has no color to it. It has no um like gender. It has no like even region. I listen to music that's that has come from Cuba, that has come from um, France, that has come from Africa, like different countries in Africa, that come from Atlanta to the Bay Area to Chicago. Like, there's no limitations. London, like, music is the thing that I felt has been one of the greatest connectors for me to get to know other cultures and people. I grew up in a city where it's segregated, man. It's segregated overall. You know, you only see the integration of cultures mostly in the downtown area of Chicago. So I wasn't exposed to a lot of cultures growing up. So it was music and me participating in music allowed me to go connect with my Native Americans when I would go to certain states and connect with my Asian brothers and sisters when I went to certain places and connect with, you know, my Latino brothers and sisters. I got introduced so much. So music has been that divine connector to me. Like it's the divinity in it that has allowed me to connect with so many different walks of life and human beings. And I think it's, you know, it could serve as a healing thing, as a healing mechanism because it just possesses that love and that divinity in it. I listened to John Coltrane's Love Supreme,
Yeah.
like, and I could be like needing some time to just alone to just go through my thoughts and calm down. I could be sitting with friends and feeling like I want the vibe to be chill and everything to feel like peace. Um, I could be on a ride from a hard day's work and filming and put on a lot like that music can bring those things to you. And you know, it's times I put on other types of music to get me charged, whether it could be, you know,
That's right. Mhm.
Mobb Deep or Nas or, you know, like these, you know, some of the classic 90s hip hop that gets me to that place. So music has so many um beautiful qualities to it and I love it, man. And it's been one of the greatest gifts I've received from the Most High.
I have to tell you, I truly enjoyed reading your book, and I wanted to ask you about the title, "And Then We Rise." Um, what does that title mean to you? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the cover as well.
And Then We Rise is well, I spoke about Maya Angelou before. Maya Angelou was one of my greatest influences as a kid, just writing. And she had a poem called Still I Rise. So I, you know, I came up with the title as a nod to her and a respect to her, but it also really was speaking to how self-love and wellness and taking care of yourself mentally, you know, emotionally, physically, and spiritually will actually help you, not only help you, but benefit your family and your community. That's how we will rise. Like for me, one of the greatest ways to combat negativity and like some of the ills that are going on in the world is to give yourself love and from some way, just naturally, that love comes from you to others just by the way you are, the way you are present. Once you got that love resonating and illuminating in your soul, in your spirit, and you practice that, that don't mean you perfect. And I'm not perfect, no one's perfect, but you practice that and that's the way of life for you, then it actually betters your community. So my way to combat some of the negative talk, the negative thoughts, the negative diets, the negative news, the negative, the hatred was to put this book out and talk about ways that I found peace, the ways I found happiness, ways that I've been able to overcome difficult situations and some of the tools and resources. It's access, David. You talked about access. It's access. That's what I wanted this book to be.
I love that. I love that. I wanted to ask you, the book really breaks down into 4 pillars around food, the body, the mind, the soul. Why was it so important that you structured it that way?
Well, I felt that those 4 pillars, and I go back to music a little bit. I kind of was inspired by John Coltrane's Love Supreme. He has 4 parts to the Love Supreme. I think it's acknowledgement, pursuance, psalm, and resolution. Um, so I was like, man, I'm gonna do something creative like and have these 4 pillars. And the 4 pillars, I chose those 4 pillars because each one was something significant that I learned at a stage in my life and a step in my life that I put in my tool belt, in my repertoire that actually got me to elevating. Because I felt like and understood that yeah, when I just was spiritual, that was one thing, but it's other things to add to that. And or if I was just being like, if I was just exercising and didn't have any outlets towards meditation, towards centering myself, towards like dealing with my own mental issues, I wouldn't be the whole individual that I'm striving to be. Um, if I wasn't, so if I only had one of those pillars or two of those pillars, and I felt like I knew that food was the important part that helped shape my life, changing my diet and just being aware more than anything.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I knew that what meditation had brought to my life and how that helped center me at times when I'm going into some of the most nerve-wracking, pressure situations. It was that meditation and the rituals that I have that centered me that got me there. So I wanted to share that with, and then I wanted to share about therapy, as we talked about earlier, about our community's not really utilizing that. Wanted to talk about that. So those are the reasons why I broke it into 4 pillars, and I wanted the book to be practical and somebody could just turn to it and be like, okay, food, what's up with food? And make it a conversation.
Well, I mean, it certainly read like a conversation, which I loved, and it very much read like someone who is still learning in that journey. And was that very intentional? Because it wasn't just like, here's the self-help book, here's how it was really about how it is really around your journey of continuous learning, which I absolutely loved as well.
Yeah, thank you, David. I for surely recognize that that I don't know everything, and I consider myself a seeker. I'm a seeker. I always
Mm.
want to learn. I want to learn till I physically leave this planet, and um, it's important that I know, like, yeah, I've seen certain things, experienced certain things, but as we spoke earlier, we learn from our daughters. I can learn from a homeless person who I have a conversation with. I can learn from like a teenager that I'm talking about that I'm going to talk to at schools, and we just have a conversation. So I understood that learning doesn't stop, and I also wanted to present a truth to it, like not like I'm not like sitting here as a health expert. I'm not an expert. I'm just someone who's experienced these things and saw the results and saw changes in my life, and I wanted to share those things. I I shared the experts that I work with so that they can have access to that. And I feel like it's almost like I'm a conduit because sometimes, some of the experts, the language and things and the way they speak it might be over the head or might not reach some people. And sometimes it might, but sometimes it might not. So how can I break it down really simple and talk in a language and also let the reader or the listener know that, man, I didn't start off eating the way I do. I've learned that, like, man, why so many people in our communities are dealing with diabetes and high blood pressure and dealing with heart attacks, and we're seeing young people. So I was learning about those things younger, and then I started connecting it to food because of hip hop was one of the things that taught me about eating a healthier diet. And that being said, yes, I feel like that it was important for me to just make it really just easy to read, practical, and I thought that would be a way for it to be effective and to reach those communities that I really want to reach.
Yeah, I there was so many parts of wisdom in your book, and I tried to do some of that even in my own book around recharge and talk about when I was younger. When I would have stress, I would turn to very unhealthy types of habits,
Yeah.
unhealthy habits with food, or unhealthy habits around smoking, for example, to handle stress, which I don't do today. I've
Right.
learned to handle those things differently because I knew at some point both the mental part of it and the physical, they're so linked. Uh,
Yes. Yes.
You don't take care of one, the other starts to go down. If you don't take care of your mental health, your physical health goes down. You don't take care of your physical health, your mental health starts to go down. So you have to create this relationship around food, movement, how we think. And so much of it related to parts that I put even in my own book, which I just loved.
Yeah, man, I love that, David, and you just summed it up better than I could say it, man. They linked and they connected, and it's just like, man, if you don't take care of that mental, even if you're doing the physical, it's something is missing. You're not gonna fully be able to use your mental at the capacity that you're capable of. If
That's right.
so, I've been having, like when I talk about pressure situations, it's like, man, I realized that my movement in those mornings of even a light workout or if it's a walk, it's good for my mental. And I realized that my practice of reading my Bible and the scriptures that I use is what people would call mantras, but the scriptures that I use are my mental are reminding me that I have power and I can go out and do the physical. And then it's like, the emotional thing is like when I'm encountering something that's really pissing me off, because I can recognize that, man, all I gotta do is take some deep breaths or, like sit and listen to this piece of music for a second, or just, man, say that I'm grateful like a few times for what I'm grateful for. Man, it's hard to be angry when you're grateful, you know?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
so
right. And I love the linkage and all your conversations, how they go back, so many of them around spirituality. Um, I had the fortune to interview Delilah. She's a radio talk show. And she talks so much about spirituality and how that helps her in her mental health journey. Because
yes.
it's a journey,
Yes.
and it's not something that for some of us, it's with us our entire life, for others, period of time. But you can always turn back to your faith in those moments. And that's how she recharges her own battery by turning to faith.
Yes, I one thing my therapist will remind me of when I'm going through my situations of insecurities, you know, feeling like less than, is that, man, God's love is in me. Like
Mm.
God's love is unwavering, and it will always be in me, and it's the greatest love. Like, and it's the love that when you recognize that spirituality, that the highest, the creator of the heavens and earth loves you in the way that he loves you, then, man, it allows you to understand, like, some of this stuff I'm worried about and some of this hurt I'm feeling is there, but it's something greater than that exists. And when you focus on the greater, like, the thing that's bothering you becomes less and less. And that spirituality for me, David, it's been a journey because I grew up, like going to a church which was unapologetically Black, unashamedly Christian. That was
Mm.
the mantra of it. And I learned God in the way I learned God in a non-denominational Christian church. Then I was introduced to Islam in certain facets through music, and then asking why my father named me Rashid, which is my middle name. And I started to read the Quran and some of the Quran, and though I didn't understand it all, I read and learned and tried to, you know, I saw the similarities in that and the Bible. And then I had books of Buddhism that I would read just because I'm a Sikh and I'm learning. And I realized that a lot of these practices were in spiritual um, disciplines were routes to get to the Most High. And if somebody chose Islam, they my brother and sister, just like somebody that's a Jewish that's practice Judaism, or somebody's practicing Buddhism. It's like I didn't find I saw less of lines and boundaries, and that's where spirituality became my way of life. And I embraced because ultimately all those spiritual practices talk about loving yourself and others as you love yourself. And like operating in grace and in joy and with love and having a peace beyond understanding. These are things that I saw in all those spiritual practices. And they might be spoken in a different way, but that's why, and when I look at Calm, to me, Calm is out there doing the work of the Most High by encouraging people to find that gratitude, to be able to sleep better is helping people to be able to, like, you know what I'm saying? To
Yeah,
give
I
them
do.
access to
Yeah,
meditation is that's God's work to
yeah,
me that we do. So but I gotta ask you one thing, because you brought up something. I want to ask you what got you to the point of recharge. Not the book actually, but
yeah.
you being like, okay, um, man, I'm about to shift some things in my life. What was the catalyst?
Yeah, there was so much there. I would tell you that, it took me becoming the CEO of Calm to really understand and have the language to talk about mental health in the workplace, especially. I feel like we could talk about mental health in the public, and it's probably the most approachable it's ever been. I have these conversations with my children. I wish I had these conversations when I was younger, but I'm so glad I can have it with them. But then I come to the workplace, and those conversations really didn't happen, and it made me start to wonder why. And then I really created the book around trying to simplify around a battery and saying, here's some techniques to have the conversation at work. So it doesn't feel so heavy. It doesn't feel like such a heavy topic. And we can check in on one another, even at work. And here are some tools to do that.
Yeah, that's man, that's beautiful. That's powerful. And it's so necessary because the workplace, we spend so much time in the workplace, like, and some I found that a lot of people, like, sometimes in their spaces seem unhappy in their workplace sometimes. And it's like, man, it's necessary to be able to put it out on the table and to have a company that embraces that, because, man, we spending a lot of our lives working, you know?
Yeah.
And and it's like, man, one thing I'm a believer in, we built for happiness. We created for happiness. And this world can drag us to thinking other things. So it's like, man, if I'm spending a lot of my time in this place, I want this place to encourage my happiness too, and encourage my peace of mind and joy. So the fact that, you inspired that, or put that out for to be used in the workplace is very powerful.
Oh, thank you. And I have one final question for you. And I could just keep on going here, but I got to ask you one final one, which is I often talk about how the brain is not a supercomputer, that we do need to think about it like a battery and we need to recharge. And there's things that it'll be short recharges, long recharges, but how do you come and recharge?
Okay, my recharge actually starts at the beginning of the day, because what I do is, like, I say my prayers, I do my reading, and I have my meditation that I've, from things that I've learned from different places, put in my meditation. So that's my beginning, is to recharge in a way that, like, okay, so when I go through this day, when I need to access, s- something, I'm dealing with a stress, I've already fed myself and loved myself and recharged myself from whatever I've been through. I've recharged. Now that's how I do it on a daily for me. And if let's say that day is over and I worked hard, and I'll recharge by s- sitting usually alone, playing
Mhm.
some music I like, allowing myself just to just be present. If I feel like, um, just relaxing and laying down, that's a part of my recharge. Sometimes I might end up reading something, that's beneficial. Um, I also like to recharge by watching the basketball game and enjoying that.
Yes.
Yeah, I love basketball, so that's part of my recharge is like, man, I'm gonna turn on ESPN or watch the game and just enjoy it, man. Like, and that's definitely a recharge for me. I like going on walks. Like walks have been amazing for me. Now, let's say I worked a lot just got through doing back-to-back things. My longer term recharge is to go away. I go to different like retreat places and
Yes.
and I take time to just sleep, do nothing. Do nothing is so rechargeable. It's so recharge friendly just to do nothing, not have anything on the schedule. I do that, but I also get these great massages. Did a horse therapy at this one resort that I go to a lot. Um, Also, like you could go do practices like drumming and different things. So whatever courses that I want to take, but I want to encourage that recharging for me is always staying present because I try to pay attention to what I need in that moment.
Love
Sometimes
that.
it's just the basketball. Sometimes sometimes it's just that there's a recharge. Sometimes it's just that John Coltrane or that Miles Davis playing that record. Or sometimes it is just that walk, or sometimes it's a ride to go to the water. Or sometimes it's just like um a quick dinner with someone I love. That's part of recharge too. Or the recharge may just be going to sleep.
That's
So
right. That's
yeah.
right. I mean, there's so many different ways, and you said it so eloquently, to recharge your battery. I will tell you one of the ways I recharge is by having conversation, and having conversations like we did today recharge my battery to 100% plus.
Oh
So
man.
thank you, Common, seriously, for taking the time today, giving us all these words of wisdom. And for those of you who haven't read his book, go out there right now and purchase this book, And Then We Rise. It is absolutely fantastic. And thank you again.
David, I just want to say, man, I really, really enjoyed talking with you, and man, get recharged too if you watching. And hey, I'm super geeked that I get to do something with Calm. So I'm looking forward to it, and blessings to you, brother. I hope we do more.
Thank you. Thank you. Look forward to it.
All right, love.